So when I beg lately, I'm like Reggie. I'm just begging for something. I might get it, I might not.
Welcome to the second season of the Laughing.Mystics, an unorthodox journey through the liturgical year with Laura Lewis-Barr and Marcy Mederi. Well, welcome to Laughing.Mystics. Hello, Laura.
Hi, Marcy.
Hello, listeners. I hope you're doing something fun as you listen to this, maybe taking a walk on a lovely summer day.
It's my go-to for cleaning the house. Helps me do that. So that's another option.
Laura pointed out to me, and I thought this was pretty cool, so I wanted to share it, is that the Laughing.Mystics podcast is recommended by Progressive Christians organization. So nice to be noticed by them and to be listed as a podcast for people. So do you have you have something for us?
Let's do it. Okay. This is one of my very, very, very few. I don't think I've ever done a yes/no question before.
I'm certain you have not.
I have not. Yeah. But this one I just wanted to, but I invite us to say more than yes or no. But the question is, am I comfortable breaking laws for the greater good?
I was going to ask why.
Yeah.
Why would I break a law? Am I comfortable disregarding irrelevant laws? Yes.
Okay. And it could also be breaking laws like civil disobedience, breaking laws for the greater good.
Mm-hmm.
But like, would you do that? Have you done that? Would you do that? Would all of the above about breaking laws and my true attitudes toward it?
I have not participated in that kind of civil disobedience where I've been arrested, in big part because I have kids, especially when the kids were younger. Like, me going to jail didn't seem like a responsible thing to do.
Yeah.
As a parent, I've been a part of marches and protests, but I haven't done that big civil disobedience where I've been arrested.
Yeah.
Have you?
I haven't. I think in reality I'm uncomfortable breaking laws, but I think it has it's not as much a respect for the law in all cases, but a fear of being punished is what keeps me in line. But we're going to come back to this idea of the law.
Mm-hmm.
And where do we stand with the law? And I have more to say about that. But yeah, I think it's an interesting question to think about. What is my attitude about church law? I break all the time. I don't have any compunction about that. And civil law is different.
For me, I think it also depends what the law is. I mean, there's speed limits.
Uh-huh.
And I often drive above the speed limit. So I am breaking the law in that moment. And at the same time, stop signs here in the Chicago area seem to be suggestions, not actually things people stop at. And I do stop at stop signs. I have enough Wisconsin in me that I'm like, nope, we're going to stop fully.
If it's 3 a.m. and no one's around.
Yeah, right? That's a whole other question. Nothing is simple. Religion teacher I had in high school, she would say, it's important to do it for the pattern, creating the habit to do it. So if I don't stop at a stop sign at 3 a.m. when no one's around, I might be more apt to not stop at a stop sign at 3 p.m. when kids are around.
Yeah.
And being more dangerous that way.
Sure.
But like, I don't know. Would I really stop at a stop sign if no one was around?
Yeah, and I'm not saying there's a right or a wrong answer to that. And I do think it's a worthy question to look at our inner responses to laws. And we live in systems, of course, that have laws that are unjust. And so our reactions to those and our willingness to go along with those, or
And in what circumstances, under what circumstances am I comfortable breaking the law? Because
well said.
I think there's particular circumstances for all of us that we fudge the truth or don't follow the law exactly. As you said, church law, you're fine breaking that. And I certainly hold church law lightly. But what laws am I not comfortable breaking, and why?
Exactly. And I think the way I take church law so lightly can be very different from other people. And my not taking it the way they take it can be an affront to them because it's important to them. So this difference is worth examining in myself.
Am I completely honest with my taxes? I mean,
you've brought that up before, Marcy.
Oh, good question, because it's easy to feel like, oh, no one will know and I won't get punished. I won't get caught.
But I think the higher question is, are the tax laws moral? Because there's cheating at taxes because, I don't want to pay it and I don't want to get caught. Or there's people who don't pay their taxes because they disagree with how they're spent.
And I do have a friend, we're really not in touch anymore, but had a friend who did not pay her taxes. And she had adult children, and she was definitely more on the edge than I am comfortable being. And her kids knew that if she were arrested, what to do, because she was so against the military spending. And so I give her a lot of credit for really stepping out for her values.
I consider that she's at a higher moral level than many of us, most of us. Yeah.
Me?
Yeah.
Just in that level of courage. And last week we were talking about stepping out of the boat. That's a big step.
And not everyone may agree with that.
A reading from the book of the prophet Isaiah. Thus says the Lord, observe what is right, do what is just. For my salvation is about to come, my justice about to be revealed. The foreigners who join themselves to the Lord, ministering to him, loving the name of the Lord, and becoming servants, all who keep the Sabbath free from profanation and hold to my covenant, them I will bring to my holy mountain and make joyful in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and sacrifices will be acceptable on my altar, for my house shall be called a house of prayer for all peoples.
This was probably a really important, beautiful reading for its time. I don't see why we read it now. God is a God of all peoples. Everyone can be a part of it. Why are we reading this?
I think we're still pretty tribal. People are still pretty tribal.
Yeah, for sure they are.
Right? And just who's going to heaven, who's going to hell.
Okay, so reminding us of that. Great. Okay.
I think this is a perennial teaching that we all need to hear. Well, let me rephrase that. It's a perennial teaching that I need to hear.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to have to push myself toward who don't I think belongs, because I'm a pretty open-minded person about that. And there aren't that many people I would think don't belong. So it doesn't feel that revelatory to me.
Yeah, well, people on the far, far right.
Yeah.
Do I believe the Proud Boys belong? That feels really uncomfortable for me. Now, there is that phrase or that condition. People have to keep the Sabbath and hold the covenant. They have to be in right relationship.
Who join themselves to the Lord, ministering to him, becoming his servants. Yeah. I think my big judgment would maybe go toward the billionaire.
Yes.
That person I'm going to judge is impossible to be in this camp. And so that's maybe where my challenge lies.
And I think that's a great question for all of us. Like, who is it that I struggle with? And that's a different answer for every person.
Who can I not imagine being a servant of the Lord?
Because we don't know what's in people's hearts.
For sure.
Observe what is right, do what is just. Again, that rephrasing to see and then to do, right? Isn't that part of Catholic social teaching? That see, act.
So this reading is interesting because it's got this first little stanza that promises salvation and justice. And then it switches to this idea of the foreigner. And the whole rest of it is about the foreigner. Do you see a connection between those two things?
Well,
we do skip. I see that we're skipping a bunch of verses. It isn't continuous.
Yes, that which is an interesting question. Like, what is in between here? For me, it connects what is right and just to all people.
Okay. It's interesting because it contradicts that the Jewish people are the chosen ones. It totally flies against that.
It does. And sometimes in my mind, I think, that the inclusion of the Gentiles and Jesus is for all people feels more New Testament to me. But this is Old Testament. This is ancient. So it's deep in our faith tradition.
It's a strange, paradoxical, or I should say contradictory message of both the Old and the New Testament. In both of them, it feels like we alternate between the Jews have a special relationship and God is for all. And I guess it is a both and that this back and forth that feels like a contradiction is the both and. And I know we've said this, that God was two-timing the Jewish people. God was with the Hindus and the people of China and the Mayans, and God's been everywhere. He just told the Jews they were special because that's what he tells everybody. I don't know.
Well, back to my daughter's twins, to look at one and say, you are the most beautiful and I love you best. And then you pick up the next one, you're the most beautiful and I love you best too.
Do you say that? Because I don't ever understand why the best is added to the Jews or to a baby.
No.
I mean, why? I love you. That's enough.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I do say that though. I love you best. And I love this one best too. I love everybody best. Don't you feel like God's saying that to all peoples? I love everybody best.
I never understand the word best. If somebody says I love you best to me and then they say it to somebody else, I'm like, wait a minute. You love me best. I don't get it. What is the best? But I hear what you're saying. It's like a exclamation point.
Yes. That's so good. That's so it. The exclamation point. I'm sorry. Keep going.
No. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's it. That's exactly it. It's the exclamation point.
Just to say I love you isn't really enough. And you're not going to yell it at the person. I love you. So that's the way to make the exclamation point. Got it. Yeah, I can see it functioning that way. And so God does that. I love you best, but hey, don't get a big head. I love them best too.
And that great equanimity. Like there's enough for everyone to be special, enough love for the world and for all of our uniqueness.
It is for sure that love is a unique thing that the more we give, the more we have. We don't run out of it.
Mm-hmm.
If we love someone a lot, we still can love other people a lot. Our second reading is from Romans. Sisters and brothers, I am speaking to you Gentiles. Inasmuch as I am the apostle to the Gentiles, I glory in my ministry in order to make my race jealous and thus save some of them. For if their rejection is the reconciliation of the world, what will their acceptance be but life from the dead? For the gifts and the call of God are irrevocable. Just as you once disobeyed God but have now received mercy because of their disobedience, so they have now disobeyed in order that, by virtue of the mercy shown to you, they too may now receive mercy. For God delivered all to disobedience, that he might have mercy upon all.
You know, understanding that this reading, I mean, this follows the letter from Romans from last week, where Paul is saying, oh, I'm so anguished because the Jews aren't saved. And now he's saying, oh, but I love you too, Gentiles. I mean, it feels like Paul's doing exactly what we were just talking about. Oh, my Jewish kinship, I love you best. Oh, Gentiles, I love you best too.
Right. And maybe if I tell you Gentiles that I love you best, I'm going to make my race jealous.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to come along. I like that for me, this reading is saying whether we're conscious or unconscious of our call, it doesn't matter. That our calling is what matters. And if we don't heed the call toward God, and I don't mean Christianity specifically, but heed the call of God, then there's a price to pay. The gifts and the call of God are irrevocable. They cannot be taken back. So whether you recognize it or not, you've been called.
And that piece, like, even if you disobey, it's an opportunity for God to show you mercy. And so there's even blessing in that.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about Paul, and last week his anguish, and this week his discussion of the Jewish people rejecting his message. And it made me think about the work of Lawrence Kohlberg, who did work, maybe it was in the 50s, about stages of moral development.
Oh, yes.
Yes, I love his work. And I'm going to be posting images of his stages of moral development, but one of the stages is sort of the middle stage, has to do with following the law.
Yes.
And then you get beyond that stage to universal principles, ethical principles that maybe are beyond the law, and that's Paul. And I thought it's an interesting, and I Googled Paul and Kohlberg, and there was, I don't know if people were writing about it, but I got responses saying, yeah, you can make that. You can put those together, because And this doesn't apply only to Jewish people. This is Catholic people or Christian people, all of us that can get attached to obeying the law of the church, the law of the law in the Torah. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm of a belief, and people who are in the state of following the law might disagree with me, that there are higher laws that go beyond church law, human law. And so that was where my question came from. And I just wanted to offer that because we're talking about Romans, and I'm looking for more things to say. And this was another thing to say, to think about stages of moral development. And I do think there's an argument to be made that Paul is asking people to break the law that they've learned, that they're comfortable with, that they feel attached to, and break those laws. You don't have to break them. You can hold them, but that there's something beyond those too.
I mean, the classic example, of course, in Nazi Germany, it was lawful to kill Jewish people, which is just a very clear example of when laws are not moral. And it's a question for us in this country today. What laws do we have that are not moral? And how do we judge that? By what measure, by what rule do we judge? Because you can move into anarchy pretty quickly if you don't have a moral code by which to set a law against.
So I read a little bit about Kohlberg, and he had this experiment, a famous experiment, where he said, all right, imagine that this man Heinz, has a wife who is dying, and there is a drug company that has a life-saving drug for her, but he cannot afford it. And so he steals the drug. Is that moral? And in order to solve the moral problem, what I read was that each person has to put themselves into the mindset of the other people. And if the druggist or drug company puts themselves in the mindset of the woman or Heinz, then what they come to is that human life is more important than profit. If you step out of it, that will always be the answer. Even if I take the mindset of the drug company and weigh these conflicts, human life is always more important. Anyway, that's my really bad paraphrase of the study, but this is an example of the question you're asking. How do we make sense of law and higher calling and higher principles? And Jesus talks a lot about overcoming our adherence to the law at the expense of the higher calling of love.
Just taking that example and adding a little more complexity to it. So what if Heinz embezzles money from the company to be able to buy the drug, but in embezzling, he throws the company into bankruptcy and people lose their retirement and they suffer greatly. Then is it moral? Because now you've got other people, other lives who are suffering because he chose his wife's life over theirs.
You've made it pretty impossible now, I think. It feels like, how do you?
Well, yes. I mean, it's not simple.
Yeah.
If someone's starving and they need bread and they steal a loaf of bread,
it feels straightforward.
But if that stealing of the bread puts the shopkeeper out of business and then he's starving too, it just, all those ramifications from our choices are tricky.
Which I think in this example and in the way that they said to do it, judging morality would be, all right, I know if I steal this loaf of bread, it's not going to impact this guy. He's wealthy. It's fine. Versus, I know everyone's stealing from this poor guy. And if I add my theft, I may put him under. I think that is part of putting ourselves into the other person's shoes.
Absolutely.
And we just don't do that enough in the world, unfortunately. It feels like that's the sense I get, that this, and it's complicated because we have to love ourselves as the other, but
there's just always unexpected consequences, or maybe they are expected, and you're willing to take the risk. My first mother-in-law, Rose, grew up in Nazi Germany, and her father was a part of the underground. He was a university at the University of Munich, and he was caught and tortured and killed. And the family then became enemies of the state and couldn't go into a bomb shelter, did not get rations. And then she was with her mother when a bomb hit their house and her mother was killed. So if her father had just gone along with it, her mother would be alive. And yet she was clear that her parents talked about it, and they talked about the risks and made the decision because it was such a moral imperative. They had to step out of the boat, even if they drowned in the water.
Right. It seems, on the one hand, with this safe distance, it seems like the only moral choice. But if I put myself now into the moral dilemmas that we're in right now, then, well, there's not only the moral choice, it's, am I willing to be uncomfortable or worse?
Yes.
But all this to go back to, I think the tension within, let's say, the Catholic Church right now, or during Paul's time, the tension for the Jewish people between law and what they know versus something that feels risky, but that is more universal, because that next level of moral development has to do with universal principles, universal concerns, not just the tribe.
And yes, and whenever a person grows beyond where they're at, there is a lot of effort and fear in moving into that next space, into doing something new and different.
It helps me have compassion for people that are different than me, that see it differently than I do, to recognize that people are in different places on the continuum, and they are sincere about where they're at. And so my asking them to step into a different place feels threatening, and they're asking me to step into their place feels wrong. So, yeah, it's a dilemma that Paul is facing. I think part of what he faces.
And that causes him a lot of personal suffering.
Because he cares.
Because he cares, yes. It's, I think, one of those crosses that Paul carries.
And it's a cross that we carry when we care about the world we're in, the church we're in, and the differences in terms of how people see what is the right, what is the moral thing.
Right. When we care about people, what we hurt.
And even caring about institutions,
yes,
caring about the Catholic Church and being frustrated that it moves so slow. And
Amen. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. At that time, Jesus withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon. And behold, a Canaanite woman from that district came and called out, "Have pity on me, Lord, Son of David. My daughter is tormented by a demon." But Jesus did not say a word in answer to her. Jesus' disciples came and asked him, "Send her away, for she keeps calling out to us." He said in reply, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." But the woman came and did Jesus homage, saying, "Lord, help me." He said in reply, "It is not right to take the food of the children and throw it to the dogs." And she said, "Please, Lord, for even the dogs eat the scraps that fall from the table of their masters." Then Jesus said to her in reply, "O woman, great is your faith. Let it be done for you as you wish." And the woman's daughter was healed from that hour.
So this woman is begging like a dog.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about that a lot because my dog, Reggie, is a big beggar and he always gets whatever he wants from me. My dog, Reggie, will refuse his food, but then he comes up and like he wants the treat and I have to negotiate and fight with him about it. But let's say he eats his food and he comes and he wants a treat and I give him a treat and he goes and eats the treat. Then he comes back, he wants another treat.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll just do that forever. And eventually I tell him no, but he has a lot of power just in the way he stares at me. So I learn a lot from him about the power of prayer. And I've actually been begging God for some things. And I think about Reggie when I do.
Yes. And this story of the Canaanite woman, or the Syrophoenician woman, as she's also referred to, scripture scholars say that this is probably absolutely accurate, that this happened, because it shows Jesus in a negative light. And nobody would make that up. If you're going to make up a story about Jesus, it would be Jesus doing really awesome stuff, not being rude to a woman who is desperately asking for help, and a little demeaning to her.
At the same time, I thought it was coming out of Matthew's emphasis on the Jewish people as being the people. I find it hard to believe that Jesus would have said any of this.
It's also in the Gospel of Mark. Is that interesting? But Jesus isn't like the puppy-loving guy here. Jesus is hard and saying, no, what I have is for these special people, not for you.
He's hard in a lot of Gospels, but I think of it as a word from the sponsor. I don't know, like even when we have "and behold," it suddenly seems like we're going to enter like a fairy tale story.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Right. The pay attention. Here comes a Canaanite woman and her daughter isn't sick. She's tormented by a demon, which I find interesting too. I mean, that whole Canaanite thing, they're dirty. Of course it's going to be a demon, but she asked 3 times.
It's a traditional story. I recognize it that Jesus refuses to heal outsiders. So why would Matthew and Mark emphasize that? You're saying it's because it really happened. I'm asking, are there other reasons why this could be? I mean, if Matthew's writing to a Jewish community, he's doing maybe what Paul does, which is making them jealous, to say, hey, you guys, even the despised one, even the proud boy said yes. Sorry, proud boys, don't mean to pick on you. But, you're probably not listening to this podcast.
Chances are good they're not.
But that's the analogy.
Yeah, well, and it's like, I wouldn't even say proud boys, but the dirty outsider, the dirty immigrant. That's who this Canaanite woman represents.
I was updating it for us.
Yeah, yes, true. But that she changes Jesus, a Canaanite woman, about her daughter and all this feminine, it's, which are easy to be tossed aside, females. This Canaanite woman changes Jesus's message.
That's great.
Yeah, it is great. And so So that interaction with us and God is a conversation. I think of Abraham and his negotiation with God, saying, okay, if there's 20 good people, will you still destroy the city? Okay, how about 15? How about 10? So she is inviting Jesus into a different space. It is by her faith and her belief, not only that her daughter is healed, but that salvation is opened up for all people.
That's beautiful. That is mystical. And I think sometimes the writers maybe put things in, they don't even know the mystical. You're reminding me of something that I posted by Thomas Merton. He has a book, if people don't know about it, it's called Opening the Bible. It's a little book by Merton. And he says, the Bible itself in the book of Job gives us a pattern of healthy disagreement. Not only that, but throughout the whole Old Testament in particular, we find people like Abraham arguing with God and being implicitly praised for it. The point is then that becoming involved in the Bible does not mean simply taking everything it says without the slightest murmur of difficulty. It means at once being willing to argue and fight back, provided that if we are clearly wrong, we will finally admit it. And then he goes on to say, the Bible is not, as a whole, is not merely that God is always right and man is always wrong, but that God and man can face each other in authentic dialogue.
I love that.
Yeah.
That God and humans can face each other in authentic dialogue.
This idea of arguing is, I think, a little central to the Jewish culture too. And I love what you said, though, about this reading. And going back to this idea of begging and being like a dog, I also thought of, and I did some research on this, the idea of quantum mechanics and physics and entanglement and all this spooky science, as Einstein called it, as maybe a kind of scientific exploration of how prayer might work. Like, how does prayer work? And there's a surprising number of people writing about this. And it's all mystery. It doesn't solve anything, but I find it fascinating that we can look at prayer in these ways.
It is. That pleading for more openness and how we're all connected. Just what you said, that spooky entanglement. And how does that work with prayer? How does my intention, how does my love, my focused energy influence someone?
Yeah. How does it influence the great, unknown, unseen?
It's a really fascinating question. How does prayer work, and where does science fit in with it?
And it does seem like there's a great divide between people who believe in prayer and people who don't, although maybe not. Like, my husband Rick doesn't think of himself or talk about himself as a believer, but he talks about prayer and talks about praying. And I once in a while say, do you have any idea, like, who you're praying to? And they'll say, no, I have no idea, which is fine.
That's great. That's great. And sometimes I think for people, it's a matter of vocabulary. Some people are really comfortable with saying, yep, I'm praying for you to God. Other people say, I'm going to direct energy. I'm going to hold you in tension. I'm going to, do whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, the Quakers say, I'll hold you in the light.
What a beautiful phrase. It's the trick with prayer is if I'm pleading and it doesn't happen. That's, I think, where people feel betrayed by prayer.
So I want to ask you a question based on that, and we don't have to include it in the podcast if you don't want to. Because you've spoken in the past about praying for Earl's recovery, and then he didn't recover. Were your prayers answered?
Were my prayers answered? I just don't know for me if it's that simple. like if I could say that. He was healed. All those wounds and trauma that he had from his childhood somehow got healed in that last year. And he died. So does that mean I have less faith because I couldn't keep him alive with my prayer? I think that's the trap. I don't believe that to be true. He, rather than dying in 2 to 3 months, he lived a year and 2 to 3 months. And so that was a miracle, that year of life. It's not easy for me. It's not simple for me because of this. And I'm not willing to say that, oh, this Earl's death was a part of God's plan. I'm not willing to say that either.
The healings you describe in him, in yourself, in your family, from an outsider's point of view, it definitely seems like answers to prayer.
Oh, yes. Yes. He just didn't get cured.
Got it.
And I think that's a really important distinction between healing and being cured.
Well, I've noticed that the church changed language in the Mass that irritates me.
Now my soul will be healed.
My soul will be healed instead of I
I'll
will
only
be.
say the word and my soul will be healed. That is the change one. It used to be only say the word and I will be healed.
So now the church is saying, well, we can't guarantee that your body will be healed.
Right. Well, and even in the teachings about anointing of the sick, the sacrament, that it's about healing. It's not about curing, because we will all die. All things die. So that distinction that we anoint, the church anoints in that sacrament, inviting God into our deepest healing, as opposed to asking God for a cure.
I mean, it's assuming that I don't necessarily know. Well, I don't know God's will. I don't know what is best for me, my soul. And so when I beg lately, I'm like Reggie. I'm just begging for something. I might get it. I might not. And if I gave Reggie everything he wanted, he'd be dead. He'd be running around without a leash. He'd eat nothing but what he wanted constantly. And so that is my attitude, that I'm going to beg and wait and see what I get.
I heard that really the prayer is to change my will into God's will.
Yeah.
And sometimes we beg, and sometimes we do that. And certainly the Gospels are clear. Be persistent. Keep on asking. Be irritating in your asking.
And do you have a theological answer to, and I think I might have my own answer, but why that's required? Why we can't just ask one time? Why in this gospel she needed to ask 3 times? Why we're often seeing that as the example?
For me, it's about a demonstration of how much I want this.
Yeah.
It's not just a passing fancy. Like, how deeply am I calling out for this? And even in this gospel, she just goes deeper and deeper to say, this is the truest part of my heart for my daughter.
So it becomes this connection to God that deepens as my own connection with my own soul deepens in the pain of wanting.
The yearning, that desire, that hunger.
That there's something holy about the hunger.
Absolutely.
And so let's stay in that space as long as we can. Instead of just like, Reggie, give me the treat. Yep, it's gone. Give me the next treat. It's gone.
I think of the psalmist, my soul thirsts for you, that deep thirst.
And what that makes me think of is that all of our thirsts are thirsts for God. So this woman's love for her daughter or any of the other things that are part of my sacred soul work that I long for.
And as I listen to you, I think about that mother. She is willing to denigrate herself for her daughter. because she loves her daughter so much. She's not asking for herself. She's asking for her child.
And to be occupied by a demon, I think about this in our daily life. I think when people go out of their minds because they're addicted to something, they're addicted to money, or whatever thing that destroys them is the demon. And how do we find release? How do we help other people find release from the demons?
And how do I release my own demons? How do I invite God into that space? And because a demon, I think, can also be a past trauma.
One that holds me frozen.
Yes, a great image, one that holds me frozen.
I get that from Dante.
Oh, Dante.
Sorry, spoiler to those of you who haven't read the Inferno.
All right. Well, thank you so much, good listeners. We appreciate being with you and you being with us as we struggle through this unknown and the complexities and the things that aren't simple. And be sure to follow us if you haven't, and share this podcast with someone who might really enjoy it and want to delve into those challenging conversations.
Until next time.